What if the one thing keeping you stuck is the way you think? Welcome to Change Your Mind with Chris Ashley. Podcast science meets spirituality, and mindset becomes your most powerful tool for transformation. I'm Chris Ashley, author of Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality, trainer, speaker, and lifelong seeker. For years, I battled trauma, depression, anger, chronic illness, low self-worth, and the weight of old stories. Until I discovered how to rewire my mind, reconnect with my divine nature, and consciously create a new reality from the inside out. This show is here to help you do the same. Each week, we explore the intersection of personal development, spirituality, and science, diving into topics like healing, emotional mastery, entrepreneurship, resilience, and the quantum nature of reality. You'll hear powerful stories, gain practical tools, and real conversations that will help you change your perspective, get unshakable confidence, and live the vision your soul has always known is possible. Whether you're navigating a major life shift, building your dream business, or seeking deep healing and alignment, you're in the right place. So if you're ready to break through, take back your power, and create a life on your terms, this is your moment. Let's break free from the patterns that hold us back, away to who we truly are, and rise. Your transformation starts now. The Change Your Mind podcast, where we explore personal development, spirituality, and science. I'm your host, Chris Ashley. I am so excited for today's guest. We're going to talk all about leadership and communication and sales and personal development and being a badass black belt in like all these different martial arts. And like, as always, who knows where else the conversation is going to go. But I have a really big treat for you as a guest today. So I'm excited for you. And for me, I'm going to learn a lot along with you. First, couple quick announcements. Head over to the links in the show notes. You're going to find ways to connect with my amazing guest. You'll find ways to connect with me on social media, ways to sponsor the podcast. You'll find links to my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It was endorsed by 3 people from the film The Secret: Marcy Shimoff, Michael Beckwith, Bob Doyle. It was also endorsed by John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. So go check it out. You'll also find links to my 2 TV shows. If you're more interested in the metaphysical woo-woo side of everything that I teach and talk about, I've got 2 TV shows that we dive deep into all of that. So go check those out. Links will be in the show notes. And as always, this podcast is part of the Los Angeles Tribune Podcast Network. And actually, my guest today is part of that network. So there's so many amazing podcasts. Come check them out. Come check out our events. We have events almost once a month at this point with incredible speakers and panelists. So with no further ado, with me today, I have Dr. John L. Terry. So John is a 3-time Martial Arts Hall of Fame inductee. He is an international speaker and trainer, a 2-time Amazon Top 100 bestselling author, and John is considered an expert in leadership, communication, sales, and team building. So welcome, John. I know you have so much to teach all of us today.
Chris, I am so glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Me too. So I told you in the green room I don't do any prep, and that was like a little bit of a lie because everyone gets the exact same first question. And that is, what is your origin story? Like, what put you on this amazing path to, I guess, 2-part, become a black belt Hall of Fame inductee, and 2, just become this international speaker and best-selling author and expert in leadership?
You know, Chris, it all started with one single event, and that was when I was 13 years old. My parents relocated from a big city to a small town. And when I lived in this big city, I was a big city nobody. I was one of 99 kids on the football team, and I got 1 snap of the football the entire season. And so Dad had an opportunity to leave the clothing business he'd been in for years and get involved with the furniture business. And so as we're moving, Dad's really building this move up as an opportunity to go become a small city somebody. Being in a smaller school, greater opportunities to play ball and do the things that, you know, as a young boy you wanted to do. And when we got to this small town, I did become a big city or a small town somebody. I became the target of every bully in school.
Oh no.
And so my dad's solution to this wasn't to relocate to Fort Smith, which is what I wanted to do so I could go hide at school and be the nobody. I thought Dad was going to go talk to the principal. No. He picks me up one day and he says, we're going to solve this bullying problem. And he drives me down and he drops me off at a karate school. What I didn't know is my dad had recently sold the instructor a bunch of furniture for his home. And he was telling the instructor about my situation. He said, well, we don't normally take kids in our school, but I'll make an exception for your son because I've got another student that would be just about his size. And so I show up at this school and I walk in and everybody there looks like to me a monster. Now I'm 75 pounds soaking wet, maybe 5'4", 5'5", and I'm looking at these men 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", look like they all walked out of a bodybuilding gym, and I'm thinking, my God, these guys are going to snap me in like a twig. And the instructor welcomed me and he said, John, I'm glad you're here. He said, we have a new student that's also joined us that's just about your size. And he points to the corner and out comes this beautiful 23, 24-year-old girl. And as a 13-year-old boy, my heart starts pounding and I'm thinking this is going to be great. What I didn't know is she'd come out of a bad physical relationship and she was there to learn self-defense. So Chris, my dad's paying good money for me to get beat up by a girl 3 nights a week. So I'm getting beat up at school and then my dad's paying money for me to get beat up like a girl. And I'm like, Dad, this isn't working. And my dad, in his infinite wisdom, he said, son, when you learn to fight like a girl, the bullying at school will stop. Well, I stopped and I thought about it. And this girl was beating everybody in the school that we were involved with, the martial arts school. And I thought, well, if I can learn to beat her, I can learn to beat all the guys in the school. And if I can beat all these big guys at the school, surely I can handle myself in the junior high there in the little town we were living in. And as I began to learn to fight, I began to build my confidence. And as my confidence began to build, all of a sudden the bullying at school stopped without ever having to engage in a fight. And at that point, I fell in love with the martial arts and began to pursue that with passion. And for the last 52 years, that's been my life. And as a school owner, I wanted to be more than just a martial artist. I wanted to help kids learn to recognize what it meant to be a martial artist. And that wasn't just punching and kicking. It was about living a life of discipline. It was about living a life of courage. It was about living a life of integrity. It was about serving other people. It was about recognizing that you've been put on this earth on purpose for a purpose and finding that purpose, what I call your black belt leader within, and releasing that to go make a difference in the world. And I began to speak on that and I began to write on that. And one thing led to another. And now here I am, 3 Martial Arts Hall of Fame inductions, 5 black belts, 10 books now, 4 bestsellers on Amazon, 1 as a LA Tribune bestselling author. It's been an incredible ride and I'm enjoying what I do, having an opportunity to change lives for the better every single day.
I was like welling up with tears as you were telling your story. I mean, it might also be because I'm pregnant and hormonal, but that was such a cool story. It reminded me of what's like the new version of Karate Kid where they're all grown up that they've been remaking. Have you been watching it?
The new remix. I don't know the actual name of the movie.
Oh, what is the name of it? It's driving me crazy. But there's that one character in it, the Hawk character, and he gets beat up and he like goes to his karate dojo and he gets like the shit kicked out of him and he like runs out and everyone thinks he's like going to cry and like do the same thing he does normally, but he comes back the next day with like blue hair and a mohawk and a leather jacket and like this total like confidence, different personality, and it totally reminds me of that. I love it. That's such a great story. So what are you actually a black belt in? You said 5 different methods.
So I have black belts in Shorin-ryu, which is an Okinawan style of karate. I have a black belt in a self-defense system of Kempo. I have a black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. I have an instructor certification in Jeet Kune Do. I have an instructor certification in Krav Maga.
Wow.
So the equivalent of 5 black belts.
Amazing. So you're not the kind of guy we want to run into if we're doing bad things in a dark alley or something, right?
I'm in the dark alley with you.
Yes. With you, yeah, for sure. Very cool. So when you started writing on all of this, what did you start with? Because I know you're an expert in leadership, but you also speak a lot about personal development, right? So like, where did you start with your first book?
It's funny because my writing started in elementary school. And I had a teacher that discovered I had a passion for writing, and she began to encourage me to write. And so I began writing and actually performing little 3-act plays in elementary school. And so that was really my first start. And then I got involved in writing novels, short stories. But my very first book was actually a book on biblical principles of money management. I had met a good friend, Malcolm McGregor, who was the Christian CPA for the 700 Club. He and the pastor of the church I attended were good friends, and he came in to do a conference and spent a few weeks in our community. And I had an opportunity to be his attaché and just kind of follow him around everywhere he went, and his driver, and whatever he needed, I was there to do. But as we began to interact, he discovered I had a passion for finances and understanding money and how it works, and had a good understanding of the Bible, and all throughout the Bible where we see these incredible teachings on money. And Malcolm asked me as he was getting ready to fly back to California, he said, "John, God's given you a gift. What are you going to do with it?" And my response was, "Malcolm, I'm 23 years old. I don't know." He said, "Well, I want to challenge you to write a book." He said, "I did, and it can change the world." And Chris, for 3 nights, when I would lay down in my bed at night and close my eyes, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Malcolm's face and hearing Malcolm's voice saying, "Write a book. I did. It'll change the world." So after 3 days of not sleeping, I drove to Little Rock, Arkansas, and I bought a computer I didn't know how to use to write a book I didn't know how to write. That book ended up being picked up by Beacon University, now Christian Life School of Theology, and became a required reading in their economics class. And that literally went into 25 countries or more, 25 countries I know of around the world, and has literally touched tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of lives. And I never left Arkansas, but literally touched the world, just as Malcolm told me in those words, "Write a book. I did. It'll change the world." And for those
I have serious
goosebumps.
goosebumps.
I did that. And it's exciting. That book's now in its 4th edition. It's now available on Amazon. And I still get emails from time to time, people reaching out saying, "Thank you for sharing your wisdom in this area." And that's just been something that's just been really exciting for me. And
That's so cool.
A great way to, segue into writing and doing something unique. Yeah.
That's really, really amazing. I love it. You were meant to write that book for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to add, I mean, I'm not super familiar with the Bible, but can you just give me like 1 or 2 little things in the Bible that talks about finances that was helpful?
It's interesting. If you go back and you read the Bible, whether you're a person of faith or not, there's a lot of biblical principles there that are applicable to everyday life. And if you read the red letters of Jesus, Jesus taught more on the subject of money than he did on heaven or hell. And most people don't realize that, because he understood that if we don't learn to manage our affairs will manage and control us. And one of the things that he shared very easy is he says, you can't love God and love money. And he taught that money is a tool that we use to help us live life and to achieve, our goals and dreams and aspirations. And then from that, if we fall in love with money, money can become a trap that we become emboldened to, and can literally make us its slave if we think we've got to go spend it all now, and we spend tomorrow's money today and we go in debt. We literally become a slave to that credit card every single month. And that's just one of many examples throughout the Bible that we see.
Wow. I mean, that's real. Like that's legit. I had no idea Jesus taught about money.
Yes.
I've never read the Bible, but I've been watching The Chosen, and I grew up without any kind of religion. My dad's family was Jewish, my mom's family was Catholic, but like neither of my parents like followed anything. But I've been watching The Chosen, and I'm like, wow, I really love Jesus. Like, I understand why people love Jesus. And I mean, I've read A Course in Miracles. I love A Course in Miracles. I don't know how you feel about that, but yeah, I really want to read the Bible now, actually.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so interesting about the money thing. I had no idea. So what were your books after that? Because I know you have some really fascinating books and fascinating methods of writing them too.
My 10th book actually releases this Friday. And so I'm really excited about that. It's called Musings of the Master, Volume 2. But most of the books that I've written are in the personal growth space. Now, one of the follow-up books that I did to my first book, which is called Dollars and Cents, A Kingdom Perspective on Money, is a book called Christian Martial Arts. When I was involved in running martial arts schools, we had an openly faith-based school. And most people said, you can't do that in a retail location. Well, I proved them wrong, because we had 3 schools in 3 cities. We had over 200 kids enrolled in between the 3 schools, not to mention 50 to 60 adults. We were doing well in what we did. Now, we weren't proselyting kids, and we had kids and adults in our program that were Muslim, that were atheists, that were Jewish, that were Hindu, a variety of different faiths, but we taught character development using the Bible as a guide. and how to learn to serve other people, to love other people, goodness, kindness, greatness, simplicity, looking at what is called the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, and patience, and teaching what those things meant in the lives of our students made them better people and better members of their community. And as a result of that, that's what attracted parents to our school, because we focused on academic excellence, we focused on community service, we focused on being men and women of integrity and understanding what that meant, and then we also focused on the self-defense aspect of martial arts. So as a result of that, we had an incredible outreach. And so school owners started reaching out and saying, how have you been successful doing that? So I wrote a book called Christian Martial Arts, The Passion, the Calling, the Journey, where I documented my journey in setting up and establishing a school that used the Bible to teach faith-based character values. And that has literally gone on to touch the world as well, and has really shaped the lives of a number of martial arts school owners that needed a guide to implement that in their schools. And then from that, really launched into the personal growth space. And probably my signature book there was a book that I released in April of 2020, right as COVID was started, and it's called Black Belt Leadership 101. And that is looking at what I've learned over 50 plus years in the martial arts and how we apply those teachings to leadership. So I took the word black belt and I turned that into an acrostic. And each letter in that black belt is a different character quality that you need to learn to develop in your life if you want to become what I call a black belt leader in life. So that book literally walks you through white belt to black belt and how to become a black belt leader and to live your life with black belt excellence. That book, worst time in the world to have a book launch, you would think, because I'm planning this national book tour and the whole world's shopping. And so I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do? Well, it just turns out that if nobody can travel and nobody can go anywhere, guess what they did? They bought books and they read books. So that book ended up being on the Amazon bestsellers list for almost 6 months. And that was just very, very exciting for me. And then once the world opened back up and I got an opportunity to get back out, still travel and teach on that book. But to that, I've added a number of different books in the personal growth space and other areas of learning to master yourself.
Very cool. It sounds like you were doing amazing work with your karate studios, and that's something anyone could get behind, right?
Absolutely.
Service and love and compassion and community service and academics and personal development. So I love it. That's very cool. And I think, those are definitely the universal qualities that I think all religion and all spirituality has in common. Like, I think we all have more in common than we have that divides us. So that's really, really cool. So what do the letters in the Black Belt leadership stand for?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
Yeah, of course I'm going to ask.
Well, let's walk through that real quick, because that's an interesting study in and of itself.
Okay.
So when you think of the black belt, you've got the B. The first B is belief. You've got to believe because you cannot achieve what you do not believe. The L is for learning. If you want to become a black belt leader in life, you've got to learn what it means to lead yourself well so you can ultimately lead other people well. So it starts with learning leadership for yourself and then learning how to lead other people. The A in that comes into accountability, because part of being a black belt leader requires that you be accountable to yourself, to be accountable to the others that you're ultimately going to lead. The C is for communication. You've got to learn to communicate and communicate effectively, because just because we say words to each other doesn't mean there's understanding. So communication goes not just to the words that are said, but the meaning and intent behind them, as well as the importance of learning to be an effective listener so that you got an opportunity to understand and hear what the other person is saying from their perspective. The K is kinetic, because leaders are people of action. You can't be a leader and sit on the bench. If you're going to be a leader, you got to get off the bench. You got to be willing to get in the game. You got to be willing to fight the good fight. And if you get knocked down, you got to get up and keep going. That's the K. The next B is boldness. You've got to be willing to be bold, because leaders go first. If you think about a leader as the person taking a group, that's the Indiana Jones story. You've got to be the Indiana Jones that picks up the machete and begins to hack the trail through the jungle to go find the hidden city. You've got to go first. That requires boldness in and of itself. The E is for equipping, because as a leader, you're not just developing yourself. A leader equips other people who will one day take his place or her place as a leader. So if a leader is not equipping and developing people, they're not a leader. They're a dictator. And then as we
Totally.
move on, then you've got the L, which is loyalty. And again, that builds on the accountability that we talked about earlier. A black belt leader is loyal to themselves. They're loyal to their passion. They're loyal to their calling. They're loyal to the people that they're leading. And as a result of that, they're going to work together and make sure that they're serving each other the way they would want to be served. And then the T is transformation. When you practice the others, your life begins to transform and it begins to change as you begin to learn and grow, and you get on this process of continual development. As a leader, you begin to expand and grow, and your life begins to change. And as your life begins to change and you develop your ability to lead yourself, you now can lead others at a greater capacity and take them places maybe they couldn't go on their own. So that's the first 9. Now, the last one is a hidden trait that you don't see, and it's the martial arts element concept of Mushin. Mushin is a concept that means no mind. When you begin to embody what we talked about in those initial 9 character qualities, and you practice them to the point they become second nature, you don't have to think, what would a leader do in this situation? Because it becomes who you are. It's just like when you get up in the morning and you go to walk to your bedroom door, you don't think, oh, I need to grab the doorknob and turn the handle and pull it. You just do that by default because it's become a habit. And as you practice these 9 character qualities and they become habits in your lives, you begin to live those out in your daily routine. And lo and behold, you're the leader that everybody wants to follow.
Yeah, and it just happens. Amazing. I love those so much. I love the way that you say it, like a quip. I never would have thought about that for like developing people, but yeah, those are really great. So have you, I know you've had so many people go through your school, and I think you even said you trained a few people to open their own schools. What kind of transformation have you seen in your people applying all of these leadership qualities?
You know, it's interesting because when I started my 3 schools, I didn't want to be a school owner, but I had a couple of young men that came to me and they wanted to open a martial arts school. That was their passion. That was what they wanted to do. And they were great students, but they had no business background and they had no money. So I said, okay, let's go into partnership. I'll put up the money. I'll teach you how to run a business, and we're going to build a school. I'm going to teach you what you need to know to run the back end of the school and to run it as a business, which is something that many martial arts school owners and instructors to this day don't pay enough attention to.
Yeah, totally.
So I taught them that side of the business, and they developed their martial arts skills to a very high level. And I told them, I said, at some point, I'm going to be done, and I'm going to give you everything you need to be successful. At that point, my seed capital comes out of the business. Whatever's left over, and I'm not taking a dime of what I put in, whatever comes out is yours. And you're going to go from that point forward with the experience, the knowledge, the wisdom, and the insight, and whatever money's left in the account from your good stewardship to be able to take that and go and grow with it. And out of that, 2 of those schools continue to this day. The third one, that individual decided he thought he knew better and tried to do some things I taught him not to do, and he did them anyway. And as a result of that, he failed. And he had to come back after it was over and apologize for not following through and not doing what he was told. But again, that in itself is a learning opportunity because we learn from success, but we also learn from failure.
Oh yeah, you learn really important lessons from failure. Wow, what lucky men that to be like mentored by you in that kind of way, and to have you give them the capital to start up and teach them all the business side. And yeah, I used to own yoga studios, and trust me, like it's a very different person that's like a great yoga teacher versus a business owner.
Right. Yeah. You know, and it's funny because I just keynoted a conference for a group of financial advisors in Chicago this last week. And it's interesting, a lot of those same failures that I see in the martial arts industry in my work that I do with the United States Martial Arts Hall of Fame, I see in this second industry, in this financial services industry. You know, just like when you go ask a martial arts instructor, what do you do? Well, if they say, well, I'm a karate instructor or I'm a taekwondo instructor, well, that's what they teach, but that's not what they are. They're a business owner that teaches martial arts. You go in the financial services industry and you ask them what they do. Well, I'm an insurance agent, or I'm an investment advisor representative, or I'm a stockbroker. Well, they just limited themselves to that one thing rather than seeing themselves as a business owner that trades stocks and bonds or sells insurance or does manage money, but they can do other things. It expands the opportunity rather than limits the opportunity. And so that's part of what I do through Black Belt Leadership is take these concepts and principles into corporate America to help people discover their own Black Belt leader within, and then use that to build world-class organizations that serve their clients at an ever higher level.
Yeah, I think that's really smart, because the way that we describe ourselves and the way, especially to other people and to ourselves, dictates the future that we're going to have, right? Like our words and our thoughts and our beliefs become things. So
how you see life is how you do life.
yeah,
All
exactly.
you see yourself is a yoga teacher or an art teacher or a stay-at-home mom or a whatever, and you limit yourself to that, you just put a lid on what you're capable of saying, doing, and becoming.
What do you call yourself then? An entrepreneur or a business owner? Yeah.
I am an individual who helps people discover, develop, and deploy their own Black Belt leader within, so they can uncap their potential and have an opportunity to achieve their greatest dreams.
Boom. I love it. The elevator pitch. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
Misty and I were just talking about that right before this call. It's like, we've got to nail that down on mine too. Because it's when people ask you that, you want to be able to say it like you just did. And you sound like a badass when you say it. So, okay. So I want to talk about your other books too, because I remember we were chatting before and you were telling me that you wrote them in a really unique way based on, I believe it was conversations on your podcast, and then you compiled them into a book. Do I have that correct?
Part of the series I do, the Musings of the Master, is really a compilation story. Leadership lessons are everywhere, as you and I talked when we were talking earlier. The problem for most of us is we don't live in the moment to see and experience and take the time to glean those lessons. And we get so busy thinking about what happened yesterday or what we're going to do tomorrow or what we're going to do next week, we miss what life is trying to teach us every single day. So I try to be very intentional about living in the moment, because if you think about it, this moment right now is the only time there is. We can't go back and undo the past. We can't go forward and change the future because it hasn't happened yet. We've only got right now. And every day when we get up, life wants to teach us a lesson. And if we pay attention to what life is revealing to us, there's always a lesson there to learn. And, it's picking up those lessons. Like, I picked up one just the other day. I was talking to an individual on a plane, and he had a winery. And as we were talking about the winery and the process they go through to make grapes, I asked him, because there's an old proverb in the Bible that says you don't put new wine in old wineskins. And I asked him, I said, why would they say that? And I said, I see similar writings in Egyptian history and in Greek history. I said, why would we see that in all these different places? And he began to explain that when wine is first made and it's going through this fermentation process, that part of this fermentation process of the sugars inside the grape juice turning into alcohol releases CO2. And as it does, it begins to expand. And so if you have a wineskin, which is a piece of leather that they used to use to carry wine, and all of it had stretched to the point that it could stretch no more, and you filled it full of wine, well, as the wine's going through this fermentation process and it began to expand, all of a sudden it would rip the wineskin, and the wineskin is ruined and the wine's gone. And so out of that, I took the idea of, well, there's a lesson there. When we have an open mind to be able to learn and grow, it's like a new wineskin, that as we're fermenting these ideas that life is teaching us and revealing to us every day, we give them the opportunity to grow and expand so we can apply them to our lives. Or we can turn around and have a closed mind, like an old wineskin, and be rigid and brittle and say, this is the way we've always done it, and we're not going to change. And we get this attitude that there's only one way instead of many ways to do things. And if this is the best way, there's not a better way. And if we choose that, then we just limited our ability to explore new ideas and to learn and grow. And the minute we stop learning and exploring new ideas and growing, Ray Kroc said it well, as long as you're green, you're growing. But once you're ripe, you start to rot.
I love that. That's a great, and I love that. And I just appreciate people like you that look at life that way, right? They're always trying to learn. They're always trying to grow and expand and level up. Because I think that's why we're here as humans, right? Yeah, we're here to learn and grow.
My son took me to a Batman movie, and I'm sitting there watching Batman, and I'm watching this character Two-Face in the movie. And in the middle of the movie, I grab my phone and I start taking notes about Two-Face. And he looks at me and says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I just got a leadership idea about true friends and fake friends, looking at the two sides of Two-Face." So leadership lessons are everywhere if we lean in and pay attention. As I shared when we talked prior to this about recently being diagnosed with cataracts, and just recently had lens replacements in both my eyes. And I found out after they had replaced the lens in my right eye that I had lost almost all the peripheral vision in my right eye. And as a result of that, I had a blind spot I didn't know I had. But how often do we walk through life with blind spots because we're unwilling to learn and see things as they are and be aware that there are other things out there we could see and seize because we focus on doing things the same way over and over again and we're unwilling to change. So ideas like that are where I get a lot of these stories that go into these musings. And every 6 months, there will be a new volume of musings I'm going to be releasing going forward as I'm collecting and gathering. And I've got a little notebook that I carry with me everywhere I go. And every time I get a leadership idea, I jot it down. And then I go back and I'll flesh that out. And all of these will eventually become a podcast episode, an article, or a musing or something along the lines. And I'm on book number 2 of that. So there's a lot of musings I've picked up just over the last few years.
Amazing. I love that. And it's so true about the blind spots, right? Like we don't know what we don't know. And if we're not willing to change our perspective and maybe listen to someone else with a different point of view or see things in a new lens, like we're never going to change, right? We get so rigid.
Yeah. I love what you just said. If you don't know what you don't know, one of the most interesting lines I love to use when I'm doing keynotes and I'm talking about personal growth and having an open mind is I'll add one more line to that. I'll say, if you don't know what you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. And then I'd stop and I'll let the audience think on that for a minute. And then all of a sudden you'll start seeing these people go like, "Oh, yeah." And then they kind of lean in to hear what's next. And at that point, they're realizing that they need to open up and pay attention and see what's coming and hear what's coming.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So for the book, The Musings of the Master, do you have guests on your podcast, or is it all like leadership ideas that you've kind of picked up along the way that you just talk about on the podcast?
Yeah, the Black Belt Leadership Podcast is a teaching podcast.
Okay.
And that was originally started out as giving martial arts school owners that wanted to be more than a martial artist, giving them content that they could use in between their exercise period and their instruction period. They'll often do what's called a mat chat, where they're doing personal growth or leadership or something along those lines. So that's where that initially started, was in my schools. And then I began to give that to other schools. And then that turned into a podcast where I began to deliver that as personal growth content. So every Thursday at 10 a.m. Central, a new episode drops on all the major podcast channels. And that Black Belt Leadership Podcast goes out every single week and has been going out now for 2.5 years, I guess. Yeah.
Very cool. I'm going to start tuning into that. So I have a son, I have another son on the way. I definitely want to put them in martial arts. Like my husband, I don't remember what he's a black belt in, but he said it like changed his life, right? Gave him so much confidence, like all the things. Is there a specific martial art that's like the best to start with to build confidence and learn all these leadership qualities?
All of the martial arts are good in terms of what they can teach. What's important when you get to the point that you want to put your child or yourself in martial arts is to identify what is it that you want to experience, or what is the outcome that you desire as a result of enrolling yourself or someone else in martial arts, and then choosing the appropriate style that's going to deliver that for you. Taekwondo, as an example, great if you want to get into competition and you want to have the opportunity to compete in tournaments and maybe have an opportunity, if you're really good, to get on the U.S. team and travel, or to have an opportunity to go into the Olympics. Taekwondo is great for that. If you're more focused on traditional self-defense, then maybe it's Krav Maga or one of the traditional Japanese arts. All of them are going to teach some level of character development, personal growth. If they're not doing that, then my recommendation, stay away from them. Because if they're just teaching punching and kicking, then it's more like a gym than it is a martial arts studio, because a true martial arts studio is going to develop the whole person, not just teach punching, kicking, and self-defense.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I definitely want like the discipline aspect and the personal development in there. I would love to take martial arts myself. Is it like weird as like a 40-year-old woman to like start martial arts?
My oldest student was my dad at the age of 70.
Yes, I love that.
I found my dad at 69, came in to have lunch with mom and dad was in the living room punching and kicking to a Billy Blanks Tybo tape. And I was laughing. My mom was laughing. And I'm like, Dad, I've got a karate school down the road. And he's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm too old for the martial arts. Well, for his birthday, I gave him a karate gi and I gave him a certificate for classes. Dad came down and absolutely fell in love with it. 5 years later, at the age of 75, he earned his black belt. And Dad stayed in the school and continued to teach until he was 80 years of age. And
Aw.
at that point, his skin had gotten so thin from age that when the kids would grab him to practice their moves, his skin began to tear. So he had to kind of pull back from that a little bit. But Dad's 89 and he still punches and kicks a little bit. And it's, to my opinion, helped extend his life and has made him a better person as a result of going through it. And he absolutely loved it.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like an aspect of being a woman where like I get nervous walking around in the dark by myself or like in a parking garage or something. And it would be nice to know, like I carry my little taser sometimes when I go for a walk. It's like a pink taser.
My first induction into the United States Martial Arts Hall of Fame in 2008 was for 10 years of doing predator awareness, predator safety, rape assault prevention, internet safety, in schools and universities all over the country.
Oh, cool.
That was a very important part of what I started doing early on when I got into martial arts, was focusing on the self-defense and situational awareness aspects of helping those most vulnerable among us, children and women, learn how to walk through life unafraid. And that's something I still get the opportunity. It's funny because when I'll go do a corporate event, or I'm going to go do corporate training, oftentimes they'll say, well, if you're here, can you also do a women's self-defense class for our employees? And I love that just as much as going in and teaching leadership or team building or communication or human behavior or any of the other stuff that I teach, because it adds value to those individuals. And for many of them, you don't know what that 2 or 3 hours we spend together doing that does down the road to protect them from stepping into a dangerous situation, because now they learn to recognize it in advance.
Yeah. Are there any tips that you can, I know we're going so far from personal development, but are there any tips that you can just give women listeners for like predator awareness or anything like that?
One of the big things is to be situationally aware. One of the biggest detriments to today, what I see for women, is this thing right here.
Oh yeah,
they
totally.
walk around with their cell phone all day long with their head in it like this. And when you got your head in your cell phone and you're not paying attention to what's going on around you, it's very easy for someone to take advantage of you and take you somewhere you don't want to go.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say for women is trust your instincts. It's funny, when I was a little kid, I could be in the back of the house doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing. And my mom would say, Jonathan,
she would know.
Now that's when she said that, that was not my real name. That was my you're in trouble name.
Yeah.
She could be in the kitchen. I could be there in the house, but the woman could see through walls through her instinct. And she trusted that instinct, and it was right 99% of the time. So trust your instinct and be aware, and don't put yourself in a position that you could be compromised.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'm from Chicago originally, and I remember before I moved, there was this group of like teenagers that were like mugging people and robbing people. And it was the middle of winter, and they would target people who didn't have jackets on because they would be so cold that they would just be like focused on the cold and kind of like trying to get to their next destination, like head down. And like, what a smart thing on their part, but just little things like that you don't think about that other people think about.
Yeah, most predators are opportunists.
Yeah.
They're looking for someone who's not aware of what's going on around them. And as a result of that, they're seeking it. It's just like if you watch any of the Discovery Channel things about, this African safari, the predators look for that outlier. That's an easy target. And if you make yourself a harder target, or a target that's aware with your head on a swivel, you're much less likely to become the target because they see you as aware.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, you're really making me convinced that like I need to take classes and put my kids in classes because I'm a positive person and I believe in like the goodness of humanity, but it's also a scary world out there, especially when you have kids. It's like pretty terrifying.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's important. So, I want to talk more about leadership with you. Is there what haven't we covered yet today that you want to get out there to people about leadership? Maybe that's a good place.
Leadership is a lifestyle, and it's important that we understand leadership is not something you do. Leadership is something that you are.
Hmm.
And I think that's a distinction a lot of people miss. They think that leadership is a title or it's a position, and a title or position, that's all that is. If you get named a manager, you get named a shift leader, it doesn't mean you're a leader until you earn the respect and trust of your people and they're willing to follow you. And so leadership starts with learning to live a life of saying, I want to become a better version of me today than I was yesterday. Because the quality of thinking that got me to where I am today isn't going to get me to where I want to go tomorrow if I want to keep learning and growing. If I'm okay with being dull and boring and staying the same way for the rest of my life, then I can quit learning and growing. But at that point, I just cap my ability to lead myself and lead other people. And when we understand that leadership is a lifestyle, then every day our job and our responsibility is to become just a little bit better than we were the day before, so we can continue to grow ourselves as leaders, so we can continue to lead other people better every single day.
I like that definition a lot. And I don't know that I would have defined a leader by someone who's always trying to better themselves, but I now that you say it, I'm like, yeah, that really fits. That really makes sense. And I think it's also making me think like, we all make mistakes, right? Like we all screw up or have regrets or things we wish we could have done. And just because like you might, if you're listening, just because you might have like made a mistake or didn't have a conversation the way you wanted to, or didn't handle a situation the way you wanted to, doesn't mean like you're not still a leader, right? Because as long as you're trying to strive for better and learn and grow. Like, would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in the martial arts, there's a concept called yin and yang. And you've probably seen that symbol at some point if you've ever watched any, old, B-style movie from the martial arts. But in that, you've got two sides of the same coin in the yin and the yang. And so success and failure are two sides of the same coin. And it's important to remember that in every success we have, there's a small element inside of that where that success could have been better. Or had we not have chosen to do things a certain way, that success could have turned into failure. And every failure that we experience also has the seeds of success in learning the lessons that failure wants to teach us if we're willing to learn. But it's important to remember, Chris, that both success and failure are moments in time. If I go run the 100-yard dash today or the 100-meter dash now, and I get the gold medal, that was successful today. But when I get up tomorrow, if I want to be successful tomorrow and I'm a track runner, I've got to go run another 100-meter run. And if I'm not, if I don't win the gold, well, I wasn't successful that day. I got out of the blocks too slow, or I didn't focus as I ran, or I didn't drive my arms or legs, or that day somebody was faster than I was. Every day, life teaches us through success and failure what we need to do to become a better version of ourselves. The problem for most of us is we go through and we experience life, but we never evaluate what we experienced to identify and learn the lesson that's in those experiences that we go through every day. And you're only a failure if you get knocked down and you don't get up. Failure is a moment in time.
Amazing. I have goosebumps, and I want like everyone to go rewind and like re-listen to that, because that was amazing what you just said. And like I've seen the yin and yang, and I always kind of like heard it was like the darkness and the light and the light and the darkness and all, or the good and the bad, but like I've never thought of it in terms of success and failure. I love that so much. So, we have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to the show. And I know you're an entrepreneur yourself. So what kind of advice would you give to someone? Let's say they have their goal, they know what they want, and they're taking steps every day to get it, and they're doing their personal development work, and they're bettering themselves every day, and they're like out there doing the damn thing, but it just hasn't happened yet. Like the money hasn't come in, the recognition hasn't come in, like maybe the promotion hasn't come in. Like, what do you say to someone that's kind of in that in-between state?
The big thing I would say there, Chris, is be patient in the process. There's an old proverb that says, when it comes to looking at life, there's seed, there's time, and there's harvest. And if you think about that, when you plant a seed in the ground, if you're going to go, my dad and my grandfather were both farmers and they loved to have their little gardens. And one of the things they both grew was corn. Well, I
Mm.
couldn't take a seed of corn and put it in the ground and then walk out tomorrow and go pull an ear of corn and then take it inside and eat it. Once you put that seed in the ground, that seed has to have time to nurture. It has to have time to grow roots. It then has to have time to begin to sprout and then ultimately develop the fruit that we have an opportunity to eat. And the problem with a lot of people in the entrepreneurial space is they get impatient in the process. If it doesn't happen overnight or it doesn't happen by 3 months or 6 months, we give up. Well, it's just like in the podcast world. If you've been in the podcast world, nobody listens to your podcast until you've really got 100 episodes or more, because nobody believes you're serious, because the vast majority of podcasts never make it to 100 installments. And once you get 100 episodes under your belt, now you begin to have an opportunity to scale your listening audience. But what you see is people will just go gung-ho and they'll get 10, 15, 20 episodes in and they look and they've only got 50 followers and they give up. But had they continued and persevered, now they've got the opportunity to demonstrate that they've got the persistence to keep going even when the going gets tough. And that's the difference between motivation and perseverance. Motivation we have when we get started. We're motivated to go change the world and we get excited. But once that excitement wears off, if we can't stay focused on what our ultimate goal or objective is and keep pushing forward, we quit before we have the opportunity to achieve. And I'll give you an example. I have a good friend of mine that many, many years ago, he was an investment banker. And he loaned some money to some individuals who wanted to purchase some land because they believed that there were emeralds and they had an emerald mine they wanted to dig.
Wow.
And they began to dig in this particular area. I believe it was North or South Carolina. But as they were digging, they pulled a few small gems out. And then all of a sudden, that mine dried up. The money ran out and they quit. Well, my friend, because he put the money up, he had a lien on the property. He got the property back. And one day, just on a whim, he decided, I'm going to go out there and just see what they were doing. And he went to visit the mine and he went again to explore what they were doing. And just on a whim again, he said, well, I've never been a miner 49er, so I'm going to try it. And he grabbed a small little hand pick and a little small shovel, and he went into this area that they were digging, and he began to dig into the ground. He dug around 18 inches and uncovered the fourth largest emerald ever discovered in the world.
Is that a true story?
True story.
Oh my gosh.
In that mine that these people abandoned. 18 inches away from being incredibly wealthy, and they gave up just before they got to the finish line.
Oh my God, I have goosebumps everywhere.
So how many people do we know that start down a path and they're excited about this path? They're going to go change the world, whatever, in whatever capacity, but they get disgruntled along the way. And as a result of that, they quit during that time that seed is finally about to sprout and have the opportunity to burst through the ground, and all of a sudden you begin to see growth. It's like the Chinese bamboo. When you plant Chinese bamboo for the first 5 years, you don't see any growth because it's building a root system underneath the ground.
Oh, wow.
It's expansive. And then in year 5, you can literally watch that tree go from nothing to grow to somewhere between 6 and 30 feet in 1 year when
Wow.
the bamboo finally takes off. But oftentimes we quit, or we go back and dig the seed up before it's had an opportunity to really germinate and get the roots in the ground. And if we go dig it up, we just destroyed the roots that were ready to bring forth the fruit. So it really goes back to that, one of the scrolls in Og Mandino's book, The Greatest Salesman in the World, where one of the scrolls says, I will persist until I succeed. And if we're not willing to persist, as I talk about in my book, The Black Belt Secrets of Success, persistence is required for success.
I love everything you just said so much, and I love both of those stories and examples, and that's wild because I see that meme sometimes where the people are digging for diamonds, but you like know someone happened to in real life. That's amazing. So do you think everyone is capable of success then? It's just that some people give up at the first sign of challenge or adversity or when it doesn't work out?
I do. I believe everybody was put on this earth on purpose for a purpose. And I believe they were equipped with everything they need to be successful in life. But the problem with most people is they're not willing to do what successful people do in order to experience success. In my book, Black Belt Secrets of Success, the number one success principle of the 11 success principles I teach in that book is this: successful people do daily what unsuccessful people do sometimes or not at all. And a great example of that is Kobe Bryant. When Kobe Bryant was in junior high, getting ready to go into high school, Kobe made a decision: I'm going to do what nobody else is willing to do because I want to be world class at what I do. So Kobe got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 to 6 days a week, and he practiced for 2 hours early in the morning. He came in and ate breakfast, and then he went back out and he practiced another 2 hours.
Wow.
He ate lunch. He went back on the court for another 2 hours. He ate dinner, back out on the court for another 2 hours. 8 hours a day, he was putting in the practice to become the very best at every situation he could ever put himself in. And he did that relentlessly all through high school.
Wow.
And he said in an interview, he said, if you do that over time, at some point, nobody else can catch up. And that's how he was able to go directly from high school into the NBA and become perhaps one of the greatest, if not the greatest basketball player to ever play the game.
Hey, Michael Jordan, but yeah.
Michael was another one that was like that. But they were willing to do what unsuccessful people do sometimes or not at all. They made it a part of their daily routine to do what was required to become a world-class master at that art, profession, or trade. And that's the problem with most people is they want it, but they don't want to do what's required to become a world-class black belt master of whatever their it is.
Yeah. I wonder if like some people just don't even know what to do because it's like they haven't found the right mentor or like read enough books. It's like they have this idea or they think they want something, but they don't even know where to get started, or they're so afraid to get started that they get like frozen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Lao Tzu said it well. He says, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Yeah, that's a
But
good
most
one.
people are unwilling to take that initial step into the unknown because it's unfamiliar. It's scary. The reticular activating system in our brain says, no, don't do that. That could be dangerous. Well, in trying to protect us, it holds us back from having the opportunity to say, to do, and to become more. But I think for the people that feel like there's something stirring inside of them as they're listening to us talk, my advice would be take that first uncomfortable step and do something. If you think you want to become world-class at leadership, go buy a leadership book and read it. And every day as you begin to read that book, do 3 things. First, before you read it, ask yourself, what can I learn today from this chapter or this area of reading that I can, number 2, apply to my life? Learn something new and then apply it to your daily routine. And then take what you've learned and what you've applied and teach it to someone that same day to reinforce that concept, and then go back and do it again tomorrow, and then do it the next day, and then do it the next day. And after you've read that book, go get another one and read it. Go find a podcast you can listen to. Go do things to begin to fill yourself with what it is you want to accomplish so that you begin to stretch and grow yourself to become a better version of yourself. And you'll ultimately find your plan, your purpose, and you're going to find your way down that track of 1,000 miles and ultimately arrive at the destination.
I love that step 3 is to teach it to someone, because when you have to teach something to someone, you break it down in a way that is so digestible and that helps you learn it on a deeper level.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, have you ever been in a situation where you've had to teach something that like you didn't really know that well? And like I have many times, and it's like you study the shit out of that right before that presentation and you figure it out. And then as you're teaching it, it's like it clicks even deeper for you. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's that aha moment that we have when we learn and our brain becomes curious. We get that dopamine release in our brain that triggers our mind to say, this is important, remember it. And then when we apply it, we get a second release of that chemical that says, this is, again, important, remember it better. And then when you teach it, you get that third release of dopamine that says, save this where you can retrieve it because this is super important. That's how we learn and stretch and grow ourselves to become a better version of ourselves.
Yeah, that's cool. I love your brain chemicals even get involved. And I just want to also speak to what you said a moment ago too about stepping outside of your comfort zone is so important, and also like surrounding yourself by like-minded people, because I was thinking about it as you were saying that, like all of the entrepreneurs I know like love taking risks, like at least like calculated risks, right? Love stepping outside of their comfort zone, love trying things that scare them. Um, because they know that that's how you grow, right? And then like as you do those things, they're not scary anymore. It's like, cool, what else can I do? How else can I expand?
Well, it's funny
And
because
it becomes addictive, right?
yeah, we did that as babies. Think about, your
Mm,
child when it was an infant, learning to sit up, learning to crawl, learning to open a cabinet door. Everything was curiosity. And as a
yeah,
result of that, that's why we saw this rapid growth in their development, both physically and intellectually. But then all of a sudden we get into school, and instead of teaching us to remain curious, they start teaching us what to learn instead of how to learn. And all of a sudden it shuts that curiosity off. And if we stay that way the rest of our lives, we end up living this average, mediocre, lackluster life. And we never have the opportunity to achieve our full potential and get that fulfillment that comes with living a life of significance.
yeah, yeah, so true. I mean, I wonder how many people out there are living that kind of lackluster life because they're just lost that spark for curiosity or just too afraid to get out of their comfort zone.
I would say it's around 95% of the people living on planet Earth today are living
That's
average,
sad.
mediocre, lackluster lives because they're afraid to get out of their comfort zone, and they're okay with the status quo.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sad. I mean, that's why I love our group, right? Because everyone's so driven, and it's important to surround yourself by people who are on that same kind of path, right? Because you hold each other accountable, you keep each other motivated, cheer each other on, because that's the other thing. Like as you get successful, a lot of those lackluster life people don't want to cheer you on because
No, they want to hold you back because they're
Mhm.
jealous of success. And
Yeah,
rather than stretch themselves, they want to be the ones that come against you to hold you back so that you stay in that little group. And when you leave, that's something they don't like, because now they're having to look in the mirror and come face to face with themselves. And rather than acknowledge it's your problem because you chose to stay where you are as you are unchanged, and they don't want to admit that. So it's easier to point the finger at somebody else.
yeah, yep, absolutely. I think Tony Robbins says like the more success you achieve, the more how does he say it? Like the more rejection you'll get from people like that.
Yeah.
Um, wow, an hour has flown by. You're amazing. I absolutely love listening to you and your stories, and I love the way that you teach all these principles and how you bring story into it. You're so engaging. I was thinking as you were talking, like you're such a master at your craft. I can tell you've been at this for so long. So I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I'm sure people want to know where they can buy your books and connect with you, and anything else you want to share. Just now's your time.
Absolutely. So, Chris, I want to say thank you for the opportunity and the invitation to come be a part of your podcast today. I've absolutely enjoyed it, and we could do this for another hour and probably longer. Still have a lot to touch on. I'll leave your audience with this: the people you surround yourself with are going to dictate the level of success you experience or the lack thereof. So as Chris was saying earlier, you want to surround yourself with people that are going to encourage you, that are going to challenge you, they're going to stretch you, that are going to hold you accountable, but are also going to help resource you so you can achieve your goals, your dreams, and your objectives. And if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You want to be with people that are going to teach you, that you can learn from, and that you can also learn with as well. If you want to find out more about me, the easiest way to do that is to go to blackbeltleadership.com. Again, that's blackbeltleadership.com. There you'll have access to my books, access to my podcast, my newsletter, anything and everything you need to know related to the Black Belt Leader, you'll find right there at blackbeltleadership.com.
Awesome. And that will be in the show notes as well as John's full bio if you want to read it. And thank you so much again, John. It's been such a pleasure. If you are listening to this and there's someone that you think it would resonate with, please send it to them. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all the things. Let's help lift humanity up. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day, everyone. I'll see you next week.